on. It's kind of a shitty thing for him to do it on April Fool's Day, though. All right, I'm getting ready to share here.
Which, by the way, is a national holiday.
I don't understand why April Fool's Day he does it on. He makes everybody think it's not going to be real. One time on the Murphy in the Morning Show, we tried to make people think that Dean Smith was unretiring. All right, I'm getting ready to share.
Wow,
I know.
that's controversial. In our office at 10. In my office at 10. By the way, that should be the name of a book. In my office at 10.
That's the name of our book.
Yeah. Okay. Ready?
Ready.
Hang on. Oh boy, that's funny. Okay. Ready? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Brad and Britt cast, our final one for this week. We are live in the 1:30 Eastern hour on Facebook and on YouTube and we're on Newsmax now. I don't know. The right wingers are. Have you noticed that? We're down in the corner there.
I love being on Newsmax. I think it's such a great platform for us, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're booked in for the Matt Gaetz show as his first guest. When he, can we call that Gaetz Gate? Does Gaetz Gate work?
I don't understand. The news seems to get worse and worse for this guy, which, by the way, breaks my heart. I just like to say that first of all. When good things happen to bad people, it's always a sad thing. But is there any? I mean, is there any plausible thing that he's actually said? Even at Fox News, they were like, "We're not going to hire this guy." Which again, I don't know how you make that statement because it's out there.
Can we just dispense with all the details, all that right now? Because I'm most interested, and I spent some time on this part of this story, as to how we know who Matt Gaetz is, how he exists, how he is a congressman, and how he is, if I can use a phrase and cover the children's ears here when I say this, how he is a self-serving, entitled fuckface who is the beneficiary of nepotism, just like his hero, Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. He's never had to do anything in his life. And his old man is as dishonest as Fred Trump was in his own way. Did you ever see how this fucker made his money?
No, enlighten me.
All right, here we go. He had a business that was designated as a nonprofit, okay? And the business had was set up to get money from Medicare and Medicaid. It was some kind of medical thing that he set up, all right? It was nonprofit. Then he decided to turn it into a profit corporation, a for-profit corporation, and sold it off for $400 million, and the rest is history. And his old man was a politician too, and his old man's old man was a politician also in Florida. So he had the political pedigree, and he was the beneficiary of the old man using, again, Matt Gaetz is a right-wing, I hate the government, I hate Medicare, I hate Medicaid, I hate everything that the government does because it's an intrusion on the sacred free market. And his fucking father made money from Medicare and Medicaid payments and got rich off of it, then converted from nonprofit to profit. So this is hypocrisy to the 10th power on steroids. It's so perfect. It's so perfect when you dig in. And now just take this up to today with everything you now know about Matt Gaetz, the way he's behaved. A guy who obviously, again, thought that there's nothing he could do that could ever get him in trouble because, number one, he was never going to get caught. And number two, he's Matt Gaetz. Who are you?
That's right.
My speech.
That's no, I don't think anything that you said is incorrect. I also think the way that he's handled this has been completely dreadful. I don't know how there would have been a proper way or a good way to handle it, but it's probably one of the worst ways you could possibly handle it from a PR point of view.
Well, but it isn't a question of, gee, I wish he would have handled it well. I wish he would have gotten a high quality, expensive lawyer with all of his money that he got from his daddy. And
you had the option of shutting up. I mean, he could have shut up.
But if you are him, you are just like Trump. Did Trump ever shut up over everything that he should have shut up about? Is there a reason that his lawyers would never allow him to testify in his own behalf? Because he couldn't shut up about all the dishonest things, the immoral things that he's ever done in his life. Why? Because he thought he was entitled to do them. And he thought you were not allowed or should not have the ability to find out about those things, because that's what criminals do. That's what psychopaths do. They operate on a different plane than the rest of us. They just do. And this guy is right in there. He is right in there. What would be handling it better be?
Oh, shutting up and not saying anything. I'm cooperating with the officials. This is not what it seems, and I will be silent about this as it is an ongoing investigation. I will not go on
too easy.
I'm not going to go on Tucker Carlson's show and make myself look like a complete piece of shit. I'm not going to even try to attack Tucker Carlson as I did. I won't look like a complete creep, which is what I am. So I'm just going to shut up and be over here in the corner, and I'll actually try to do my job and work for the people of blah, 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 blah. And that's what you do. And then now he can't do that. It's impossible for him to do that. He's being bribed. Joe Biden's involved with this. Flail. And that's what he does.
Hang on. What about Hunter? Is Hunter involved in
Hunter Biden? It's a lot of this was a lot of the plan to take down Matt Gaetz was on Hunter Biden's laptop. We just have not been able to get to it, and I don't know why we can't. You know, we joke about this stuff, but I think that Mike Lindell guy was on something the other day, and he said that Trump's going to be president by August.
The My Pillow guy?
Yeah, the Mike Pillow guy. He's on.
I thought he was. I thought he was gone. I didn't know he was.
I thought he was too,
there.
but no. Apparently, he creeps up on. If he gives enough money to One America News Network or one of those deals, he can, or in Newsmax or whoever, he can pop up and say bullshit.
So they've moved the line now out to August. Is that the deal?
Well, yeah, it's like the guys that would say when the world is going to end. No,
right, I know.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't
on Friday.
end, and then we.
And you go, oh no, I meant 2 weeks from Friday, and that doesn't, and then you just keep, that's what happens. But the big lie, which is so pernicious, and it was involved in attacking people in the Capitol, trying to murder Mike Pence. The big lie continues to be perpetuated by these people, and it's pretty disgusting. Over and over again.
Yeah. All right. I think it's worth a few moments here because you're a huge fan. Nobody's a bigger fan of Carolina basketball than you. Roy Williams, the only man to ever win 400 games at 2 different colleges. There's a record. There is a record that may never be equaled or broken. There may be somebody who hangs around long enough to win more games than Coach K.
Yeah,
he's right
over 1,000
school, but it's never going to be balanced. He's never going to have no one's going to have a balanced career the way Roy Williams did. So he's to be congratulated. He's one of the. I just hope he doesn't decide that he wants to sit there on the stupid ESPN desk, and be an analyst in between games.
I don't think he's going to want to do that. I mean, I think there's going to be like those offers, and they'll probably try to throw a lot of money at him. But I think he's like one of those guys that really just doesn't care, and he's made a lot of money, and he's going to hang out with his grandkids for a while. I think that's what he wants to do, and I think he's got a house at the beach and stuff like that. But it was a great career. He's a Hall of Famer. Yeah,
right. Matt Gaetz' father owns 7 houses. 7.
Well, God bless him.
I forgot to mention that. You reminded me.
He absolutely earned it. But no, Roy Williams is a Hall of Famer, and he was really the only guy to succeed, Dean Smith at Carolina. They had a little pit stop in between there, as people might remember. That's been completely erased by history, hasn't the Matt Doherty era at North Carolina has been erased by history, right?
Well, but the rule of you don't want to have to be the guy who replaces the guy. You don't want to be the next Jeopardy host. And by the way, there may not ever be one when they cancel the damn show finally, because they've decided that no one can do this. But you don't want to be the guy that follows Alex Trebek, and you didn't want to be the guy that followed Dean Smith. So you had that bumper in there of Guthridge and Matt Doherty. You had two bumpers before Roy Williams came back. So that worked out perfectly for him. But now they've got the problem. You don't want to be the guy that succeeds Roy Williams. Now they may have to come up with a loser or two again
to get to the guy.
Right. And, Carolina may have, seasons where they go 8-23 for a while before they get back.
This is when we came up with the concept of Coach Guthridge also was in there as well. You had the buffer guy who had been there forever, who you could kind of put in there for a minute before you went to the guy. That was another great Carolina invention. And we had one of those a few years ago when there was a Pope that they kind of had who was like the placekeeper until they got the real Pope. Remember we called him Pope Guthridge? And I think Ed Cohn was like, I wanted to give you guys full credit for that. That was many, many years ago.
But that didn't work, because then the next guy was worse. They had to have two guys. Guthridge wasn't such a bad coach, right?
Guthridge went to a Final Four in San Antonio.
Right. But we'll see. I mean, it isn't, when you think about it, considering where we are now in the world, it's not the most important thing who's going to be the next coach of a basketball team. It is a little bit easier to put that kind of story in perspective right now, but around this part of the world, it's a big deal, because
I just don't want to. I don't want the hand wring, or it has to be somebody from the Carolina family and all of that. I'm really tired of that shit. I'm really, that is so old. That is such old school thinking. You don't necessarily need somebody from the coaching tree. You can pick somebody else who's perfectly good. Britt, they can start their own thing.
Britt, I'm sad that you just don't quite understand the tradition and the importance of keeping the idea of this proud first land grant university in the country idea as one within its. How dare you? Hey, why don't they just go get a Duke graduate and get it over with? Right?
Oh, no,
what is wrong with you?
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I heard.
You have to full Lil Nas X and have sex with the devil. You can probably. There's a lot of other shoes besides going right to the Satan shoe. You can grab an Adidas or a Reebok. You'll be fine.
Right. All right. Hey. There's some good vaccine news, and I guess some not quite so perfect news. I guess there's a batch of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that's been tainted. They have to toss it down the toilet. They have to do a lot of flushing. Sometimes you have to flush 15 or 20 times to get rid of it, right?
Because of
terrible.
Liberals. It's all because of liberals.
Right.
You have to flush all these times.
That's right. The Pfizer vaccine, the original, right? The original may be close to official full approval. Full approval, not this. I guess all these vaccines have been on temporary or emergency, whatever it is. So they're getting such good results over at least 6 months. They can't say it's going to work for 2 years, because we haven't had 2 years to examine it yet. But that's a pretty good piece of news. So we'll go with that. And then there's the other side of it, which is, people are making plane reservations and going to restaurants in a lot of places as if nothing is wrong, as if nothing ever happened.
Full capacity at the Texas Rangers ballpark today for opening day. Full
right.
capacity.
Good move. Yeah, we'll show them. Right. And so I guess it's Texas and Florida. They are in that race. They are in the race to be able to have governors. And I think that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, who's just as big a piece of shit as Ron DeSantis of Florida.
Oh, sure. Sure he is.
That's a tough one. But apparently he has some presidential aspirations working there also. And they're in a race to see who can be the biggest thumbing their nose at the federal government guidelines, CDC guidelines, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Walensky, you name it, recommendations by medical professionals on going slow, not reopening too quickly, and then blaming whatever virus does move through your population on immigrants if you're in Texas. And maybe Florida's going to invent boat people coming over from Cuba as the next source of infection down there. But they're in that race. Those two states in particular, because if the jerk in Mississippi is doing it, who cares? I mean, we don't care about Mississippi, but those two states are important, and they seem just hell bent on it. And I think we're still a couple of weeks away from knowing just how big the spring break spread is going to be, not just in those states, but the fanning out of everybody leaving there and going back to places to infect the rest of us in the rest of the country. Really, there's no place where they don't have kids that have flown down there. So
it's going to be. I think that's going to be a lingering effect for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
But in North Carolina, where the numbers have started to creep back up again. And this is all semantics. They're saying it's a mini surge. It's not a big surge. And boy, that's not, I don't want to hear that, because it's just amazing how when the numbers start to move back up, they can start to go parabolic more quickly than we know. And because of the X factor of these other variants that are floating around that we are told, and I believe we should believe, are much more contagious, you don't have to have as many people spreading a virus that is more contagious, do you? You are a more efficient spreader if you're an asshole who, say, went to Florida and picked it up and came back here, and you're spreading it around, and you might not even get it yourself. But I think the worst thing that I've heard in the last few days is that younger people are getting it at a greater number, a greater proportion than they used to. In other words, they're not as invulnerable to the new variants as they were to the previous one. And we're talking about unvaccinated people, right? Who thought that they couldn't be touched.
Exactly.
And if you've got 23-year-olds in the hospital on ventilators, then in Houston, we got a problem. We got a real problem. And I just can't believe that a person of good conscience, and I don't care whether you're 19, you're allowed to be of good conscience when you're 19. You don't have to be a fucking piece of shit. I don't have a brain yet. It's not fully developed. I have no empathy for anybody except myself. No, everybody is not that way at 19. And I'm sick of that being used as an excuse.
I agree.
That's all they're just using it as an excuse. Okay?
Right.
Oh, because you know what? Well, we can draft you into our military. If we had a draft, you can join our military if you want to at 19. So you must have some kind of judgment in your brain that we allow you to do that. Oh, wait, no, that's not true. It's just we don't give a shit. And if you're 19, fuck you if you're dumb enough to join and get killed. Which is it?
I know.
Which is it?
I don't know. And it's these people that are like 19 or they're 23 or whatever. And then it may be, okay, you do survive it. Well, but then you're going to have these effects for the rest of your life, possibly, that are going to be.
Yeah, it's a great trade-off. That's a great game to play, isn't it?
It's horrible. And you're going to have these things that are going to jeopardize your health and make things. But how do you tell that to a 19 or 20-year-old who doesn't give a shit so much about any of this? How do you tell them that, you're going to have decades and decades possibly of having trouble to breathe and not being able to work or get a job because you're not able to breathe? How do you even tell them that stuff?
It's not. All right.
It's pathetic.
I'll tell you. Let me give a choice of two subjects here. All right. Toilet paper through the roof, or gender reveal ceremony gone bad, part 87.
I like all of those. Let's do the gender reveal thing, because my favorite gender reveal thing is when they There's some rednecks that do the thing where you shoot off the dolomite or whatever they call that stuff, and it's either pink or blue to reveal the sex of the child. You've seen some of these videos.
I've seen so many of them that I'm almost immune from being shocked by how stupid people can be on this.
Right.
I just am. Here you go. This one happened in Mexico off the coast of Cancun. And there's video of it. It's a small plane that was going to release either a pink or a blue cloud to demonstrate whether the kid was a boy or a girl.
Oh, no.
The smoke was pink, and then seconds later, bam, a single-engine Cessna 206 right into the lagoon. See you later. Okay, so...
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Did the pilot die doing what he loved to do?
Right.
How much do you get paid for something like that? What's the deal? I'm sorry, but that's really funny. I can't even not laugh about that. Oh, tell me about the toilet paper.
Let's see here. Toilet paper. All right.
Oh, we were done with it. That was a year ago. There was like no toilet paper to be found in America.
Well, the price is about to go through the roof, not because people are hoarding it, although by talking about it this way, people will start to hoard it again, because you might want to load up now while the price is lower. It's like filling up your gas tank before you know that the price is going to go up, right? 20 cents a gallon. And this isn't coming from some idiots, coming from Kimberly-Clark, which makes their Cottonelle, Scott, Viva, Kleenex tissues, and your favorite Huggies.
Hey. Yeah.
When did it go from Depends plural to Depend? When did that happen? I missed that.
70 corporate meetings did that. We decided it was going to be much more effective.
Who changed that? Who decided that?
Well, we decided we
Who
want
are
you
these
to depend
people?
on people trying to justify their jobs in some executive suites.
All right, they say that by June you're going to see significant price hikes in the mid to high single digit, because the cost of wood pulp is up 35% over the last year, which makes sense because the price of lumber for houses is way up. So that's why the price of new houses,
Lord,
if you're in that market, and I'm not, is way up compared to a year ago. So it's wood for houses, wood for toilet paper. So I would go out there right now. I'm calling for a run on. I'm going to Costco today, baby. You're not going to catch me short. You're not going to catch me short this time.
You think there's going to be some runs on toilet paper? Is that what you're saying? See what I did? Is that what you think?
Okay, you ready? Yes, there's going to be runs on toilet paper because the price is going to the moon. The moon. Get it? You like that?
I see what you did there.
Thank you. Thank you.
We did have another mass shooting in the United States in Southern California this time. These again are now getting to where we're getting back in the groove to where we can just ignore these things as they come out, because we didn't have mass gatherings for a while. There were no masses to shoot. Apparently they had some people in an office building. This guy had some sort of relationship with them, and a 9-year-old is among those dead. Meanwhile, speaking of runs, the FBI reporting a record number of background checks after mass shootings last month, Brad. This is one of the things that you hate truly about America, because I do. I hate when this happens. I think this is ridiculous.
Wait a minute. You threw in that little nugget there. There were more background checks right after the last couple of mass shootings.
I'll read the headline. Guns flew off store shelves after mass shootings last month, with the FBI reporting a record number of background checks for firearm purchases.
Right.
So
as we know, that statistic will mean nothing in terms of stopping a particular mass killing by someone who is already loaded up with ammunition and the kinds of firepower that's needed. So therefore, that headline will be used maybe today after the Orange, California shooting. By the way, it's Orange, California, not specifically Orange County, but Orange is in Orange County. Just thought I'd locate that for
good
you.
to know.
I had to look that up. Yeah, because when I saw this, don't they mean Orange? No, you would never say a shooting was in a county, right? You would say the name of the city. That is the name of the city. But the fact that there are a record number of checks, that's just because more guns are being purchased. But again, this is one of the great fake arguments that gets used all the time. That because in general, background checks, the kind that have not been legislated and upgraded to where we know they would be more stringent and do a better job of screening people with mental illness and things of that sort. But because of the system now, people get guns and it happens, and then they reverse engineer the gun rights people to say, see, and I can never decide after one of these shootings whether I feel better that, oh, the gun was legally bought, or no, the gun was stolen. The gun was given to the person illegally.
Right.
I never know how I'm supposed to feel. Which is better after a mass shooting, Britt?
I think they're both bad. They can both.
Yeah.
This is always what I was so disgusted by people, particularly after the Newtown thing. Like the next day, that weekend, people lined up 90 deep. I mean, it was like the new Nikes had come out at Christmas time or whatever. The new Jordans.
But think about what that's about. Every time that happens, a large, famous, deeply covered mass shooting, the gun nuts.
Yeah.
And then by relation to people who may not be gun nuts, who may have not bought, they go, well, boy, you know what's going to happen now? They're going to confiscate all the guns. So I better buy some and hide them. And that's never suggested. It's never hinted at. It's not really part of the conversation, but it's part of the paranoia that has driven the National Rifle Association's membership, the hardest core of it. Although, again, every time this happens, you go, well, what's funny? 80% of NRA members want better background checks. So, again, we live in a minority-run country, minority in terms of numbers. The minority wags this dog on just about everything, right?
Right.
And this is a perfect example of it. And again, it may take somebody figuring out a way to get back into the Capitol and spraying the U.S. Senate and killing 20 of them at once. Maybe that'll get everybody's attention. But on the other hand, I could be wrong. Maybe it won't matter because you know what? The gun the guy had was legal, right? It doesn't. They can use that excuse every time, and they do.
Okay.
They do. There's just nothing that can be done. So this is the country we live in. We are unique in the world in this way, and it's a suck kind of unique, isn't it? It's really, really a suck kind of unique. I'm going to walk into a grocery store today. I'm going to walk into a Costco, and in the back of my mind now, I'm thinking, well, what if that asshole down at the other end of the aisle suddenly just pulled out a gun? And I guess it could happen.
It could.
It could happen.
And it does happen. And it happens in office buildings, and it happens in stores, and it happens in churches, and it happens in schools, and it happens any place you can think of. And it just seems to be this thing that we can never really do anything about. But it just disgusts me that people feel like that's the thing that they need to do. And that's the reaction to a mass shooting is I got to go ahead and grab this gun before it gets banned or whatever. I mean, I think that's pathetic and awful. Were the gun sales? I didn't even really follow it that much. Were the gun sales down that much during the Trump era? Because I know during the Obama time, it was like, oh my God, he's going to take our guns. We got to go out and buy all the guns we can all the time.
No, but that's exactly the point. There's never. It's like tax cuts.
Yeah.
If you're a Republican, what's the answer to everything?
Tax cuts for rich people.
Cuts. Right. Tax cuts for everybody all the time.
Well, but
we'll start with the rich people, of course. Right.
It kind of it's funny how they always seem to be the ones that benefit most from it for some reason.
But the answer for the folks who believe that the Second Amendment is the Constitution and everything else was just an afterthought that's in the Constitution, the only amendment that matters. During the Trump era, gun sales were great. During the Obama era, gun sales were great because he was going to take them all. We needed to get them. During the Trump era, gun sales were great because, well, Donald Trump loves the NRA. So let's keep it. There is no down season for firearms sale in this country. There is none. So
I have to say that
if your theory is, gee, did everybody just relax during the Trump era because we have enough guns and he's not going to take them, so we don't need to buy more? That's not how they think.
Well, but they were always, I mean, the gun industry always needs these people to kind of they have to gin up the fear. So when it's not, when Trump is in office, it's still, well, Nancy Pelosi's out there. Nancy Pelosi could take your guns. Wait a minute, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's out there. No, it isn't. He could take your guns. Hang on, AOC's out there. AOC could take your guns. It can always
I don't think they're that specific. They don't talk about members of Congress taking your guns. But what they did say was, Donald Trump might not be president forever. And the next guy may not be so friendly to guns and to your Second Amendment. Because how many times did Trump use this phrase? Your sacred Second Amendment. How many times did he say that?
It was sacred. It was beautiful. It was all of these things. It was always one of the, and that's one of the things I have to say that I hate most about America is that sort of culture where that kind of fear and that ridiculousness continues. And I know that they used the protest, which kind of brings us to today. They brought the protests last summer as to like, oh wow, these black people are coming and they're going to try to wreck your house because they don't like white people. So you better grab some guns because they're coming to get your stuff. And that's part of the mythology that goes on. And the real issue apparently though is not it's not that, it's the cop with his knee on your neck. That's what can really kill you and did kill a guy, which brings us to the defense in the George Floyd trial, the defense of Officer Chauvin, who their latest now. I'm really trying not to hate these people, Brad. I'm really trying not to, because I know there has to be a vigorous defense of this man. That's how this works. I get the idea that
there doesn't have to. He could just admit that he fucking is guilty and save us all the time.
That's true, but that's not going to happen. So we have to. Yeah. So I understand you have to be okay. Well, there were drugs here, and he put something in his mouth. And okay, I get it. You have to say that. Maybe that's mitigating circumstances. Fine, but I understand today they're saying, well, when he said, "Mama, I can't breathe," he wasn't necessarily calling out for the person that gave birth to him. He may have been talking about his girlfriend, which, by the way, that changes everything, doesn't it? That makes you feel way less sympathetic toward the guy on the ground who is losing his life slowly in front of you. Oh, just to fuck you, Eric Nelson. I'm sorry. That's just ridiculous that you would somehow put that out there. I know they've done the angry black people crowd wouldn't let the cops tend to him and wouldn't let the paramedics get to him. I know that's been put out there, which, by the way, was ridiculous and awful.
Wait, there's more. There's a third one. Yours, I'm glad you brought that up. There was the one you just mentioned. And then there's the magic Negro black superhuman stereotype defense of Officer Chauvin. This is the one where, and this is, they're using this, they're going with it. And it was already said in the trial that George Floyd was so big and so strong and so dangerous. And Officer Chauvin on audio recordings is saying, he's a big guy and he's strong, as his excuse for having to put him down on the ground in the way he did. And this is the myth of the superhuman, super predator black guy pumped up on drugs who cannot be stopped at any level. Here we go. You know where this one comes from? I love this.
What's it?
In 1811, so we talk about systematic racism, and there's not such thing. Yes.
Yeah, right.
In 1811, a doctor in London published a book called Practical Rules for the Management and Medical Treatment of Negro Slaves. In it, He says that slaves' bodies were, quote, much less exquisite than white ones, and thus they didn't feel pain. They didn't die from infections that white people died from, and they did not fear death. It's certainly a very great advantage to be able to face death, the inevitable lot of all of us, as they do, not only without dismay, but with an indifference, writes the author. And to this day, many doctors believe that Black people have a higher pain tolerance. And we all know, not from personal experience, but from what Black people say, that they feel that they are treated very, very differently by the medical profession. I'm talking overall. I'm not talking on every doctor every time in every case.
Yeah, that's right.
But you can certainly understand why, if you're a Black person, if you got a choice, you go to a Black doctor, because you know they're not going to harbor that. And I'm not, this is old stuff, and it existed, but shit never dies.
I agree.
Stuff does not die. It lives on in certain forms. And, you know, it's like the anti-Semitic crap that was written in the early 1900s and picked up by Henry Ford. Yeah. And to this day, it's still the Bible of the protocols of the elders of Zion. It was written in 1910 or something. And we go, well, that's 100 years ago. Well, no, it was yesterday. It was yesterday. And
I did like the off-duty firefighter who was there the other day, and they go, well, did you notice the crowd around you was getting upset? And she fires back, yeah, I don't know if you've seen somebody die, but it's very upsetting. And that's when the judge had to go, no, you can't do that. Can't do that. But that's what they've tried to. They've tried to do everything. They tried to talk about how the crowd was so angry and it didn't allow. They've tried to, he was on drugs and he's so big, like you're talking about. It's ridiculous.
Right, but this is not going to work, I don't think. Although, again, we only need 1 out of 12 to turn the other way. But I don't think it's going to work, because the question will put aside all of this noise and ultimately ask, was that proper police procedure? And if it was not, there is no excuse for what was done. And because of what was done, was responsible for killing this man, not a drug overdose, nothing, not his heart condition, but because he had been cut off from being able to breathe, and his circulation had been squeezed down to next to nothing by the weight of a man's knee on his neck for over 9 minutes. That's the only question you have to answer, jurors. That is the only question. Tune out everything else you've heard, because it is not relevant. It just is not. And to try to flip this around and say that George Floyd was in the power position here, yeah. and Officer Chauvin was just defending himself, when there were 5 other, what was it, 5 other cops that were standing around?
I think that's correct, yeah.
At least 5, 4 or 5. Again, there's no credibility in that argument. There really, really isn't. He was not armed. He didn't have a gun on him, right? He was no threat to them, really. And they could have just shot him dead right there. Right. Fall down, boom, and comes at him. But they didn't do that. So and to bring this kind of racism into the discussion is so horrible, but it's not unexpected, and we understand that that's how it works.
But see, I think this is kind of new for you and I, but I think the Black folks are used to this. I think they're like, this is just everyday life for them. They've seen trials where there were things where it looked like it was completely.
Well, Britt, I lived in that same country where those same trials happened, where it happened. This isn't about,
I'm aware as well, but sometimes our existence is a little bit different than it is for the African-American folks. And I think that's what this is about. I mean, sometimes even me in my isolated world, in my white bread suburban world, I wasn't able to see some of the stuff that now I clearly can see on a daily basis. And this trial is it's writ large. It's in neon. It's blinking that this is going to be the defense. And I mean, there's an opportunity. He could get away with this. Derek Chauvin could get away with murder. I mean, that's what's happening right in front of your eyes. And not only that, the damage is being inflicted to America while this is going on, and these bullshit defense arguments continue. I mean, that's and they're going to wonder why there are protests after this thing if Officer Chauvin walks. Everyone's watching this. People are paying attention. It is writ large that they caught this guy killing this man, and it's very difficult. I just saw Charles McMillan, the 61-year-old who broke down on the stand yesterday. He's crying because he's reliving the trauma of watching George Floyd die in front of his eyes. It's disturbing for me to watch when they have the video and they show in slow motion this man dying, this man being killed right in front of your eyes. So yeah, obviously, people can see what's going on, and a lot of folks who I had some blinders on as to how bad it was. I don't anymore, and I can see it, and it's truly dreadful what's happening in that courtroom and the assassination of George Floyd's character. George Floyd is not on trial, and yet he is. Every single day they're trying to say something awful about this guy. Well, and it's ridiculous.
But I think we shouldn't get caught up in the hour by hour testimony and the utter horridness of those arguments that you're talking about.
Right.
Because remember, it all reaches at some point a conclusion, and the prosecution will say and remind this jury that no, George Floyd is not on trial. This is not George Floyd having committed some crime for which he was summarily executed properly on the streets of Minneapolis by a law-abiding officer representing the people of Hennepin County and Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're not going to be able to get away with that. It's not going to work.
I hope you're right.
It's not going to work.
I hope you're right, but in some cases that's naive because that's happened time and time and time again. And the history is that there have been cops that have blatantly killed people. There haven't been such great evidence.
I understand. I fully understand that. I mean, the numbers are just
staggering.
Horrible. Over a period of 10 or 15 years, there's been like 190 cases of police officers being tried for murder, and like 2 of them were convicted. The numbers. It's horrible. It's horrible. Right. I understand that, but I think this is different because I can assure you that in most of those other 190 cases, there was not video from 20 different angles, hour after hour after hour. And it really does make a difference here. And I think what's going to happen, though, is he is going to get convicted, but he's not going to be convicted of what he probably should be. Okay?
Right.
Because I think this was pretty close to premeditated murder. Premeditated. I mean, this didn't happen as an accident. Because remember, he's talking to the other officers. They're saying to him, "You might want to No, I got this. I got this.
We're on it."
Right. And so the charges may be, even if they are sticking, may be considered to be too light. And if his sentence is, he's out in 8 or 10 years, I don't think folks are going to be very happy with that, and nor should they be. But then you have to go, well, but they never get convicted of anything, so we should be happy that at least they convicted. I mean, you can already see the stars lining up right.
I really appreciate the half-assed justice. Thank you, America. That's really nice of you. I know they've been, the way they'd been describing, they showed some video of him inside the store, and if you would have believed what the defense was telling you, you were just surprised this guy wasn't a falling down, puking drunk, right? That he wasn't like some guy that was high and spinning around and knocking shit over and everything. That looks like a guy that you see in a store every day. What do you know? I can't believe it. But it's just it blows my mind. That it's happened, but again, I guess it really shouldn't, because there are a lot of folks that have seen this happen time and time and time again, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. What else you got? You got anything else that's
no, I'm flying a plane for a gender reveal party, so I gotta head out right now.
Are you busy today?
Yeah. I gotta release a pink plume somewhere. Oh no, I gave it away. Shit.
All right. Then have It's supposed to be, I think, pretty cold in this part of the world over the weekend. Isn't that true?
And then warmer, like on Easter Sunday for those that are celebrating. It's supposed to be, I think, a pretty
and
nice day.
as
Hide
always,
your
I
eggs.
will be, of course.
Yeah,
I
well,
will
go get your eggs hidden out there in the front yard, please.
Right. Thank you very much. See you Monday.